Hey everybody, I'm Green Havoc, and this is South American Contenders. And you know what? I hope you are ready for a day jam-packed with Overwatch, because in every single game today, there is playoff implications on the line. From some small little victories to, well, just trying to make it into the next round. But I don't have to break all of this down by myself. Luckily, I have Pausable and Frito here to, well, give us the information we need in these teams. Now, this first game is a team trying to go 20-0, and that's the based Tryhards, and they have been looking absolutely great this season, and they look kind of a little better. Leave that to Pausable to break it down, though. And then on the other side, we have INTZ, who is desperately clinging on to the final string of their playoff hopes. So, Frito, let's jump into INTZ. What needs to happen today for them to make the playoffs?
Well, the question we have to analyze today is, do we believe in miracles? Because this is quite the Cinderella story developing before us, where INTZ, for the past 4 weeks, didn't win until last week, and 3 of their last 4 matches went into a map 5, and they only finally picked up a win in a 5th map last week, really showing us a lot of cool strategies. Actually, they played Route 66 with the invincible May stall comp, committing to the igloo to stall time off the clock longer than any team we've ever seen. It really caused some problems. I think we probably could break down how that comp would be countered, but the homework is there. It's exciting to watch this team, and especially the player HM, I think, is really stepping up. His Brig looked much improved last week, finally comboing with the Shatters and Diva Bombs, and then even bringing out a double projectile comp by the end of the series on Nepal, on Village, bringing out a comp that we saw even South Korea run in the Overwatch World Cup playoffs with Pharah and Hanzo in order to beat the GOATS comp. So this is a team who's doing their homework, and they're not giving up at the end of the season. They're sitting at 1-3 and desperately need to get this win to find their way into playoffs. I'm starting to believe the hype. The Cinderella story is there. I think there's a potential that they keep improving and maybe beat whoever they're playing. Who are they playing against again?
Well, that sadly is based Tryhards, and yes, sadly their Cinderella run does have to go through the the season leaders. Pausable, do you want to walk us through who these players are and who this team is and what's on the line for them?
So I think we're all familiar with base Tryhards at this point. They are the Titans of South America, right? I would compare them to Thanos, but when they snap, everybody turns to dust. It's not just half the teams, right? Not only is this team yet to lose a map this season, right? They have yet to lose a map this season, guys. But over the course of this entire year, all 3 seasons of 2018 Contenders, they have lost 4 maps the whole year, right? So again, calling them a Titan would be a gross understatement, right? And we had some worries about this team over the last couple weeks because they have had some of their star talent scooped up to North America Contenders and even Overwatch League, right? But with the addition of Lubak last week, our big question was, how quickly can he integrate to this team? And had you thrown me into that match last week, not knowing anything about them, I would have assumed he was always there. He was seamless on the front line, always on the same page as Neil, which is so important for the patch that this Contender season is played on. Because keep in mind, this isn't a live patch. This isn't, break stuns do still go through shields. So it's very important for the Brigitte player and the Reinhardt to be on the same page, and Lubak and Neil always are. And that's just 2 of the players on this team. We could go all day on how each and every one of the players on this team is a talent to look out for, right? If there is some hope for INTZ to win a map, right? Which, to be honest, let's all be real here, would be an incredible achievement. They would be the only team this season to take a map off base Tryhards. But if there is some hope for them to even do that, I would look for them to punish Wings. He's the replacement for their old support in Shot Color Alamong, and he looks good. He looks solid, but he is not up to the tier that the tier of the player he is replacing, right? So maybe that's a bit of a weak point, but that's kind of a stretch. I think in terms of uphill battles, this is a fight straight up a 90-degree angle for INTZ.
So let me ask you this real quick then, and I will turn the same question over to Frito here in a second. Is now could base Tryhards be looking to the playoffs and thinking that this game could be a little bit more of a stepping stone? It's just kind of a formality that they have to play, and maybe a window in there that the homework might not have been done to prepare for INTZ. Do you think that is a possibility?
No, because base Tryhards, they made it very clear before the start of this season. Because most of these players were on the Brazil World Cup team, keep in mind, right? So they made it very clear at the start of this seaseason. They are looking to go 20-0. They are looking to prove to Overwatch League teams, hey, we're down here. We're ready. Bring us up, right? They want to go 20-0. They're not only do they not want to drop a map during the regular season, but also during playoffs. You have more than enough time to do your playoff homework before playoffs. We're going to have a significant break here. They are looking to shut INTZ down hard.
That's a very true point. So Frito, what's the window then? Where is INTZ trying to win this game? What do they need to do?
I think desperation playmaking might possibly be there. When I watch base Tryhards, I see a team that has an immense amount of talent, obviously, but they do leave some small openings with some of their either aggressive plays for a team to win a team fight or two. It's something we were talking about before the cast started, is that on average, they give up 1 point per map. They've played 16 maps and have only lost 16 points. So because of that, they either shut out teams or maybe only let them get like the first point of a map. So there is some momentum to be found. And I think especially with some of the bigger plays I think Neil goes for, then perhaps we see HM on the Brigida punish him in small little windows of chaos whenever there is those opportunities to swing back a Diva ult or a Earth Shatter to try to win a fight. I mean, it's always like that, right? If you set up for that combo, especially on this patch where Brigida's Shield Bash goes through bears, there's always an opportunity, right, to just totally flip the team fight in your favor. So that could happen. The problem is base Tryhard's macro play is always so good. We questioned maybe would the shot calling diminish a bit with the roster change up, and it hasn't looked like that at all. In fact, they've looked even stronger last week than they ever have, which is the scariest thing about this Titan team. Lubach looking like he's just fitting in there as if he's played with the team forever. They're a well-oiled machine. At this point, I'm confident they can pick up anybody and still run the same clean system and just suffocate teams out of maps, even when there's small glimmers of hope, because their fundamentals are just so strong.
All right. Well, that's what I like to hear from these analysts breaking down these teams. But it is time for the hype to be left behind and the game to begin. We've got Hurix, we've got Lemon Kiwi on the cast, and they are going to walk us through this game as it happens and all of the excitement in it. So it is on over to you.
Thank you so much, Green Havoc. Yes, we're in the final week of Contenders South America. It's Lemon and it's Hurix. We're going into Ilios for map 1 between base Tryhards, the undefeated team in this region, versus INTZ, who are, I believe, 1-3. And this is the do or die here, Hurix.
Yeah, absolutely. This is do or die. I mean, this has to be convincing for BTH, but it also is a big opening for INTZ. If they have any shot at making it to the playoffs, it's obviously right here in the final week of play, and it's against the best team, not only in the group, but in the region in its entirety.
And we're heading into our first map, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of variety of compositions we're going to see from these teams. INTZ has been strongest on their Zen Goats, and we have seen some times where they've brought out the Genji. You know, they've brought out some triple DPS even, but almost like when they get creative, they're not practiced. While as base Tryhards, they've brought out everything from Sombra Doom, and they're bringing back their tried and true double sniper.
Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting that they're going to be coming through with this triple DPS sculpt, going to be playing the Sombra, and this is not a dynamic that I believe we've ever seen from INTZ. And in the meantime, it's double sniper from base Tryhards, playing off of the fact that they know they have 2 of the top DPS in the region, undisputed, and that's going to easily cause problems for HM. He's going to be forced to swap off to the Widow to battle that out. Obviously, against Lubach, you're just absolutely not going to be able to get anything done.
And it's smart to just get off of that pig before it stops working out already. And this first cap, so important for either Widowmaker. Already a pick here for Honorado. Lubak looking down the sights towards the right. Can't find a line of sight onto anybody, but unfortunately Hex out of position, taken out. That's 3 down for base Tryhards, and INTZ could find an advantage here to step onto the point. They already get that first cap, and they really just want to extend their lead at this point.
Well, they have to make sure that they continue this push, though, because this is an issue that a lot of teams face when they play base Tryhards, is that inability to stay in the fight. Base Tryhards is so good at the disengage, the re-engage. They did it last week as well against Predators, and looked good in doing it. We'll see Predators now X10 against Caverna later on, and that's a matchup you guys want to stick around for. But despite all that, base Tryhards, again, continuing in their onslaught of this region as a whole.
And now it's a quick swap back to the Widowmaker for HM and Svenko, triple DPS still, and base Tryhards have the Dragon Strike, and this is looking to throw it down this choke or even hold on to it for later. INTZ finding some chance to break out of their spawn, and base Tryhards let it happen.
Oh, Liko pressured very low, but supported there by Neil and Honorato, and now it's going to be a hack coming out. Still, though, Lubak finding that first pick.
EMP plus mines on the field. INTZ, though, they've lost 2, but they took out the main tank of base Tryhards. Wings not finding an opportunity to resurrect that one, and don't even need a Dragon Strike right through the side. Base Tryhards, they hold on to this point, and INTZ still not in a position to push.
Base Tryhards, one thing that really helps them out is their ability to just stay composed. We've seen it already in this map at the beginning where they were able to get that re-engage, but now when INTZ is playing this slow, when they're playing off of Drusker trying to set up basically solo without that assistance, base Tryhards can take advantage of that by getting free fight wins, getting free score line, because there's just not that many fights happening. There's not as many ults building up.
And with the double sniper of INTZ, they have even less point pressure to actually go and retake this. Meanwhile, Svenko has a blade, and he's doing work into the back line, but it's really the whole entire team of base Tryhards trying their heart out and getting the kills, despite INTZ using ultimates that you would think would give them the advantage.
Yeah, and again, they weren't able to build up what they really needed, and playing this triple DPS, despite its lethality, was not enough to deal with the threats that base Tryhards brought to the table, especially the fact that Calero was as safe as he was, right? I mean, you see this flanker setup happening, you see the Genji coming out as well, but when you're so worried about the angles that Lubak is taking, when you're so worried about Liko getting into your backline on the Sombra, you can't get into those positions, especially with a Mercy and a Lucio at that time, to actually be able to put pressure down onto their backline, put pressure onto Calero, especially how good Neil and Honorato are with peeling. Even when Liko was on the Hanzo, you see the same sort of thing. It looks as though they want to bring out the same thing. Maybe this worked for them in scrims and they feel confident with it, but I would much prefer to see them go back over to the Zen Goats.
HM was known for at least his Pharah in the last season, and he's been playing great this entire season, so maybe this is something they want to rely on. HM is always the one who brings out the strats, you know, the Mei, the Pharah, you name it. He's dueling against Liko, one of the best Pharahs in the region, though, so you have to be careful. Finds Svenko, who was diving his backline, 1-to-1 trade. Point will unlock shortly. INTZ, not out of this yet. Resurrects from both sides. It's back to a 6v6.
Still this battle for aerial superiority happening now between HM and Liko. HM really got the better end of the deal last week in his matchups, in particular on Lijiang Tower, but now it seems like it's really just bought enough time for the rest of his team to come through and win the other fight. However, this is similar to what we saw in Ruins. They won the first fight, but base Tryhards, again, was just so proficient at maintaining composure and then making sure that they found an opening and exploited that opening as soon as possible. We'll see if maybe INTZ can stay composed here themselves.
Well, getting that first cap sure is going to help them, at least at the start. And is it a bit of a deja vu from the last one? You know, taking the point and losing it immediately. Base Tryhards now on the defense, or having to attack with the Pharah is going to be a lot more difficult. Having Lubak this time on the Sombra might help things out.
And this is a little bit of a swap up here, but nonetheless, Svenko coming in has opened things up. Drusker taking the 1v1 on the point. They need to take out the Winston. If Neil can sustain here for long enough to get his ult, I mean, that's pretty much all but over already.
INTZ don't have a main shield though, and Drusker on this Hammond, it's really not a common pick on this map, or at least to play onto the point. There's not a lot of places to swing on, and if you have a self-destruct, that's gonna be tough for anybody to protect themselves on. But EMP available for INTZ, excited to see what they can do.
Pretty close to Lubak having one as well, and they really need a good position. But look at the positioning that we're seeing base taking right now, especially as the pressure has gone over to Sculpt. There's no EMP issue that they have to worry about anymore. I mean, now it's going to be INTZ backing up, biding time, getting into position and set up once again, but that's just more time off the clock. Scoreline increased for base Tryhards and more time built for Lubak to generate his own EMP, and then base Tryhards can then go on the aggressive.
Oh, both teams have support ultimates as Valkyrie started here from Hex. Lubak couldn't get that hack, and Transcendence allows INTZ to push forward. But what an early investment, and no kills going through for INTZ. Now is base Tryhards in the ultimate advantage. Both teams holding on to their EMP, but Lubak is down. So Transcendence and Valkyrie use base Tryhards. Big advantage for them in the healing department. Barrage is dropped from HM, finding Liko. Now that's free reign for HM, knocking possibly Honorado off the map, but gets him out of mech. That's perfectly fine. Meanwhile, the point's still in favor of base Tryhards. INTZ still looking for the flip, but it's probably not going to happen.
The main thing I'm looking at is just how safe Calero keeps getting. I mean, you would expect that with this kind of composition, Sculpt, Drusker, I mean, surrounded, Svenko coming in, even when he was on Doomfist, or Genji with the map prior, somehow still, Calero is not the one to consistently be going down. Honorado and Neil have always been there to provide that support, and that damage pressure coming from Liko right now is just incessant. They can't get away from it.
Svenko on the Widow, I mean, extra pressure onto Liko possibly, and mines dropped, really just not. I mean, they got destroyed, so it's not going to do much. Self-destruct from base Tryhards. Overtime dwindling away. Is anyone there from INTZ to touch? It seems so, and meanwhile, Liko's playing defense around the point, getting some kills, but it's Svenko sniping his heart out. INTZ looking for the opportunity to re-engage in great bubble to protect the supports from base Tryhards. As overtime dwindling away, INTZ still on the back foot of this attack.
Yeah, Neil with the Primal Rage. Oh, they don't even get back over to the point. That sustain was just there, and the only thing for the opposition here, I mean, INTZ, they only had the Widowmaker at that point in the Mercy, so there was no way that they were going to get back over to the point at that stage. Base Tryhards dominating once more and holding on to that 17 map win streak that they have throughout this season. They've continued it even from last season as well, where they were just as dominant, especially in the playoffs. I mean, this looks like a continuance of what we've not only expected, but what we've seen all season and all year.
Well, base Tryhards, you know, that record-breaking team of being undefeated, only dropping one map last season, on the road this season to be completely undefeated, and obviously a strong contender to win the whole thing. If they win this, well, they have a chance, but Hurix, these replays, I mean, the double sniper from base Tryhards was so strong. INTZ tried to match it, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I think when you go up against base Tryhards, a team like this, there's not really a lot of teams like this where they do have that double threat on DPS, where it's almost as if there's no good matchup. I mean, not a lot of people can match up to Lubak, not a lot of people can match up to Liko. There are some cases, but you certainly can never match up against both of them at the same time, and that is a part of what makes base Tryhards so deadly. But I think the bigger factor is what I've highlighted already, the fact that they've been able to maintain their backline so effectively, so efficiently. Calero being so safe, Wings being so safe. Just, I mean, think about how different it was for INTZ. Hex was always under pressure. Kazma was constantly getting pressured by Lubak in the backline or just by snipes and not having any ground at all to work with.
So INTZ are 1-3. They got their last win in a Game 5 win over TSM last week. Base Tryhards undefeated. Hurix, sort of what are the chances that INTZ, or what are your predictions on if INTZ can take the series versus base Tryhards?
You know what? I was actually just finishing this up. I have to one
okay.
more calculation.
All right,
and then
take your time.
All right, so it looks like,
okay,
based on all of my math that I've gotten so far right now,
okay,
we can see it coming up right here.
okay.
Based on all of this math, I've equated that it's not very likely, Chief. Not very likely
Okay.
at all that INTZ can take this. And the reason behind this is that base Tryhards, just way too good of a team. I mean, again, on all fronts, the tank line, the support line, the DPS, I would say holistically, base Tryhards are a far, far, far superior team.
You know what? I have to hire you to do my math homework because I think you're 100% correct on your final deduction of this. It's at the bottom here, they're the old Hephaestus team from last season who even struggled in their past performances, and coming here, at least I think they've improved. They're adapting to the meta, and they have at least a win on the board from a game 5. So they've tried different compositions, trying against base Tryhards, but base Tryhards are just good at everything. In INTZ, at least we've seen signs of hope on Zen Goats. I'm not sure about the rest.
Yeah, some things that we've also seen. I mean, INTZ have had a couple of opportunities to really do well with a Protect the McCree type strategy as well. It's tough to say if that kind of thing would prove to be effective, especially considering, again, holistically, on literally every front, base Tryhards are just a better team at this stage. But there are some openings. INTZ can catch them off guard. I just don't think that compositionally that's the route you want to take. If you're trying to catch a team off guard, it's not something where you want to catch them off guard with a triple DPS comp that seems unpracticed, that doesn't seem as put together, as cohesive as some of your other compositions that may be more vanilla, may be more similar to what other teams are running, and maybe Based has a better idea. But I think change up the way that you enter some of these fights, change up some of the ways that you instigate some of these fights, and that might be enough to kind of throw base Tryhards off kilter. Numbani is a map that you can do that on. We've seen how this can be close with base Tryhards. Maybe this isn't, base Tryhards' best map, or maybe it's a case of this map being the type of map that teams can actually do a little bit better on due to the dichotomy. First point, second point, third point, very, very different stages, very different ways to approach it.
I'm kind of surprised because last week when INTZ dropped the control, they actually chose Hollywood, and they had won this last week against TSN. So I thought maybe their comfort would have been on Hollywood. But of course, maybe Hollywood being slightly better for the Zen Goats dichotomy-wise that you're speaking of. INTZ going to bring out the Moira Goats, but the issue is that I've never seen INTZ run an Ana. They've really only ran Moira and mostly Zen, while as base Tryhards, they have an Ana specialist being Colero, and that's going to be meeting them at the point.
This is a big problem because, I mean, on top of everything, Base has essentially scouted them out already, and this is going to force INTZ to already make adjustments. They bring over that Protect and McCree type strategy that I was talking about before. This is something that, again, they have looked better on, especially in instances where they play on, a hybrid or escort type map. But base Tryhards still pulling out the Pharah Sombra is going to be a threat despite that McCree being picked.
Almost like INTZ read base Tryhard's mind. They have the hit scan for the Pharah, and that'll help to go against the dive of base Tryhards having that McCree and having that stun, the double stun of Brigitte and McCree. Resurrect going through for wings, and that's the beauty of having a Mercy on defense. INTZ not being able to react to this. They step onto the point, his scope almost getting the Diva low. This has pushed base Tryhard's back, getting Neil down, who's trying to protect on Arado. Now INTZ already getting 2 ticks, pretty much have the point here, and base Tryhards, I did not expect them to lose this early. Holy cow.
Not only that, but INTZ looked good doing it, didn't they? I mean, Skulk came through on McCree. Remember, this isn't the new version of McCree that everybody's wreaking havoc with right now in ranked. This isn't the version where you can just click the right click button and just tear through tanks. This is not that version. This is Skulk literally just hammering away with the left mouse button instead, just clicking heads as he does. I mean, Skulk is a monster right now, and INTZ is supporting him very well. Essentially, base Tryhards were reeling throughout that. Now they switch up the composition. They're going for something a lot more aggressive, and this is going to be a different approach for base.
And you have to worry about this nano from base Tryhards, and they're going in. That's what's so scary about base Tryhards is their dive. But they've lost Liko, they've lost that energy, they lost Neil again. INTZ looking so good. They use Svenko's Primal to just toss everyone up. And Svenko actually doing a great job, usually an off-tank player, and has taken on the Winston role, and somehow this has been fight after fight for INTZ, and a very pleasant surprise.
that double stun issue that INTZ has been causing for base Tryhards. This is going to be yet another compositional swap here for base Tryhards as they just go straight over to the Zen Goats. They want to approach this differently, and this is certainly the way to do it. You still have to deal with this high ground. Maybe you're not going to do well on point 2, or maybe you just let this go, but point 3, I think they'll do a lot better.
Oh, this great riot shield that they have for this Deadeye and self-destruct into the back. INTZ trying to channel this space around the payload that's just a few meters away. Base Tryhards losing on Arado. Now they've lost Liko again. This is just resets of energy, not having a lot of tanks to go through this. Neil has no backup, and Base Tryhards might have to rethink this defense because they've just lost fight after fight.
Yeah, 3 fights in a row now that INTZ have not only won, but had complete control over. Complete and utter control over. So base Tryhards, like I said, that second stage with this type of composition was never really going to work out in their favor unless they completely outplayed INTZ. That's just not happening here. This is the stage where they can pull things back. They can regain control, regain momentum here.
Well, INTZ trying to channel some space around this payload, and they have the support ultimates to make it happen. They charge forward, and they get the backline of base Tryhards so low. The Primal from takes out Calero, and Neil dies early. What is going on with base for Tryhards? This is not the undefeated team we've seen before. INTZ only on the back of one ultimate have completely set up their final attack, and they didn't even have to use support ultimates, so they're looking so good to finish this with 4 minutes and 20 in the time bank.
Look at where Sculp is setting up to with his Deadeye. The grab is going to come out, but the Deadeye is going to pressure them out so that they can't actually approach it. And Liko gets taken down before it even comes down.
Oh no, but the shatter, it actually gets 2. Wings has to use the barrier, but responding barrier from INTZ. They're going forward. Jessica has to use a self-destruct. Base Tryhards running out of time, but they just need Liko to get back and get the most humongous grab that they can. But they're losing pressure onto the cart. INTZ! They take out Neil, self-destruct into the back, takes out Hex. This is fine though, INTZ are still in a great spot. Honorado's responding, base Tryhards are slowly coming back into this fight. Liko's grab didn't do much, but INTZ are losing members, only 4. But the defense advantage means base Tryhards are gonna get back. They have Neil, they have a Hammond, and they have a hope and a dream. 3 minutes and 30, another Deadeye on the field from Sculp. It pushes base Tryhards back. Can INTZ clear the few meters that are left? HM is undefeated. 3K for the Brigadier player on this team. INTZ have had 4 minutes and 20, and they will end with about 3 minutes and 20. What an attack from this team.
Oh, catch your breath, because that was insanity. INTZ strung together 4 consecutive fight wins against base Tryhards. They didn't lose one single fight. Yes, that last one took quite some time to win out, but despite the respawn advantage, in spite of the ultimate economy that base Tryhards accumulated over the 2 fights prior, INTZ still coming out ahead. And now they have an opportunity to set up defensively, peel some time off the clock, and if they can make sure that base Tryhards are down low on their time bank, they have a real shot at being able to do that once more. However, remember, once we go forward into further rounds, if it gets to that stage, because base Tryhards, certainly with what we just saw, they could be full held at, throughout this map at any point, obviously. But when we look at these coming rounds, base Tryhards, we know that they are so solid with adaptation. They're one of the best teams, if not easily the best team, I think, in this region with adaptation. However, how do you adapt to something like this? HM, Sculp, defensively. This is an NA Contenders thing, isn't it? Like where we saw this defensive bastion with Sombra. Yeah, so it's interesting that they're bringing this out here, especially given the dive proficiency that we see out of base Tryhards. If they do go over to it, it'll have to be a quick portal down for HM, and then everybody rotate very quickly. This is going to get interesting here. I think I made a mathematical issue. There's an error in here somewhere. I think I did not account for this, and now I'm just so excited because this is the INTZ we've been waiting for.
Oh yeah, only Pogs and chat. So, and also Kazma's on the Ana. We haven't seen INTZ run this, but base Tryhards, they just saw the sim teleporters and they've seen this bastion setup. How are they going to do this? They dive right on top of INTZ. So much damage coming in. Base Tryhards have to drop. They're still doing well. Sculp takes an angle, trying to chunk down these tanks from base Tryhards. Almost a tick here for base Tryhards as INTZ just teleport to another position, and base Tryhards now out of cooldowns. Lubak, though, takes out the mech and takes out Drusker completely. One down for INTZ, but INTZ have no pressure onto the point. So that's cool to teleport back and forth, but you've given up a tick and a half. Base Tryhards, do they decide to ignore this? They're just slowly chunking down this defense of INTZ while accumulating percentage points.
Again, it's just the dive proficiency from base Tryhards. And set that up very well, though. I mean, we saw the coordination happening between HM and Sculp, where Sculp was going from high ground to high ground, taking those different angles. And by creating those weird situations, base Tryhards, it's very difficult to deal with that when the Bastion is constantly switching angles and you can't get away from it, especially when you want to contest the point. So now, though, they've made the swap. They're keeping the Symmetra, though, and I think it's because the ultimate is coming online quite soon. I'm not sure what value they're going to find with it, but nonetheless, they're going forward with a pick.
And you can maybe help Sculp get onto the high ground a little bit faster, maybe set up a Deadeye, but the real issue is going to be this EMP blade from base Tryhards. They have the nano to combine with it, but base Tryhards have been, they've got the point even without a single ultimate, and even have a Symmetrica tactical crouch coming in. That's when INTZ are having some fun.
A lot of ultimates coming online, though. EMP Nano Blade, the one I'm looking at for base Tryhards. If they can get into position and set up so that they can deny Sculp here, they're going to be able to dive right in. Can he find the kills?
That reflex and Symmetra shield trying to protect him. It won't be enough, and he actually doesn't get a single kill with that blade. Nano Blade out of the picture. You still have an EMP. Meanwhile, base Tryhards have been pressuring the cart. INTZ have to back off, and at least just the Nano Blade is used, and you still have an EMP for the next one.
Holding on to the EMP, that's insanity that they were able to pull that off, and that deflect certainly gave Liko a little bit of a head start, but yeah, he wasn't able to finish those kills off. However, he did pull Symmetra out of the fight. Now, in this coming fight, with the swap into the Brigida, now they have the double stun pressure. Now they have the ability to deal with Liko if they can get close to him. EMP out, though, for Lubak.
And it does nail the supports perfectly. The Deadeye, though, responds, and you get Liko double self-destruct from Drusker. Amazing job clearing the space around this payload. And INTZ have got the payload exactly where they wanted, right at the end of point B. And this has been a much slower attack for base Tryhards than INTZ had.
Oh, this is an interesting approach here, though, because now they're already base Tryhards is already swapping into this Zenyatta style of dive goats with the Winston as opposed to the Reinhardt that you would see typically. This is going to give them a high ground, so some verticality to approach the high ground with, but they still aren't going to have a lot of weapons to deal with Sculp up here.
And they just used the barrier. Neil gets booped off and pooped off again. He's trying to get out to this high ground, has to use the Primal Rage. Svenko, meanwhile, has been tossing a base Tryhards' backline with his own Primal. It's really tough for any team to get anything going, but base Tryhards have chunked down the INTZ's tanks. Sculp with the Deadeye. Base Tryhards trying to stay hidden. No shots are found, but Sculp maintains that pressure onto the cart, has to back off. And they've been contesting this for so long. Base Tryhards still haven't gotten an upper hand. Neil drops down early, and INTZ, their tanks are back, and they've actually pushed base Tryhards back.
Oh, INTZ is just looking so good, and this composition is just so good for this particular section of the map, and I have to wonder why base Tryhards is already making that adjustment over so soon. And now they've even gone one step further. They've gone to the Reinhardt, looking to try to take the fight to the ground. But here's the problem. Now you only have Honorato to go up there, maybe Wings if he wants to get aggressive to deal with Sculp. He's just going to have so much high ground control throughout this, and INTZ can make a hold off of that if they allocate as much resources as they possibly can to Sculp. We've seen this with Delavinia in the past.
And that's the high ground. Base Tryhards, they go up the stairs, and what a charge. Sculp has the Deadeye, but it's going to be a Reinhardt that could block it, or Calero snipes you out of the sky. Transcendence used from Calero. Speaking of self-destruct, though, it could be big. Liko absorbs all of that energy. Base Tryhards, though, lost on a Rado 1-to-1 trade. INTZ, it's been the longest defense of a while, down to the last minute and 20. Base Tryhards, they have the Graviton. Do they use it now? They do, and this will be the ultimate that base Tryhards needed to clear point B.
Now losing out on that, though, they won't have that same momentum that they really would have liked. Now they have to really play off of an aggressive beat engage for the next fight, take that momentum and start surging forward with it if they want to be able to string this fight into the next. INTZ Answers in turn, they have now the same exact composition. It's a mirror here, but obviously advantage to base Tryhards with this ultimate stack that they have, in particular the beat to engage with aggressively, as I mentioned.
Well, INTZ have already started pushing onto the card, but it's Svenko versus Neil onto the Tryhards now. Barrier drop from base Tryhards. They start to search forward, and they get Svenko from that and HM at the same time. Taking out 3, 4. INTZ are just completely wiped out, and it's going to be just their Zarya trying to die on the card to buy some time. Base Tryhards, they have the Transcendence and a Rally self-destruct. It's to the last couple meters, but they're already at a time bank disadvantage.
Oh, Neil's so close to that Earth Shatter. If they can set him up, get him that last 5%, there it is. He has the ability to go behind. He's going to hide. Look for it.
He's looking for the Shatter, and he's got the Reinhardt right in his path. There's so many targets, just trying to use the cart as some kind of... Oh, it's so humongous. Oh, and the self-destruct right on top of that. That's the synergy we've been looking for base Tryhards, and they wipe out INTZ. Time bank disadvantage, but they get the job done.
And now they have the first attack. INTZ Esports, though. Will they go back to something, you know, way out of left field? I very much doubt it's going to be the same thing with that Bastion, with the Symmetra. I very much doubt that they'll go for that. Certainly, I wouldn't go for that. You could definitely take the same approach of this. Okay, I wanted to big brain this. I was going to say you could go for the same approach, but you would take a different hit scan. I would personally take something like a Soldier or a McCree. I think McCree is the more consistent one. However, Soldier wouldn't baffle me because it is South America. They do really like Soldier. Especially on this map, we've seen a lot of point A holds and attacks that involve Soldier 76. However, it looks like they're going to stray away from that. That's probably the safer bet if we're being honest with ourselves. Play the Brigida, play the double stun. That's been what is basically, it's essentially what got them into this position where they do have this massive time bank advantage. And now they're in a position where they can really deal with a lot of these threats that base Tryhards are going to come out of the gates with. They have that kind of triple dive with the Sombra that can go into the backline as well. And if they're able to quickly eliminate either Neil or Honorato here with that double stun opening, and then maybe even just follow it up with Hex, they have a really good shot at being able to win first fight.
And what's so scary about base Tryhards is their dive, and what a better way to counter it than having the double stun of the Brigida and McCree.
I don't think there is anything, right? Liko, though, he's getting himself set up, looking for the opportunity to get into the backline, but this is a different approach from INTZ. This is just a totally different way. Yeah. I think it was less scouting and more that they wanted to go back and just completely change it up because they saw what INTZ was running here.
Well, INTZ have the back to the Ana, and this time it's Hex instead of Cosma. And I think Sculp has been so amazing on this McCree and these Deadeyes, but Neil knows he's the target, goes towards the back and focuses down the supports. What a sleep! And Neil could be in some trouble. Base Tryhards maintaining. They have to keep Liko alive, especially. They need to build up that energy. Spanko is down. Base Tryhards, 30 seconds remaining. They also have to get onto the point. Lubak having that rally, not going to use it quite yet. This is the patience from Base Tryhards. INTZ have dropped the point, and it will be Base Tryhards unlocking that payload.
If you're INTZ right now, you have to start worrying. You have to start potentially swapping things up unless you feel very, very confident in Sculpt's ability to find the kills with Deadeye, because here's the issue. Base Tryhards, they're running a Zarya. INTZ, you're not running a Zarya. So there's nothing really that's going to get you those big team fights, those huge swinging ults that are able to control fights. Liko is 30% away from the best one.
And in overtime, you have to be careful with your dive so you don't C9 this one. Self-destruct. Oh, and a pin out of left field. Spanko is down. No main shields for INTZ. Let's see how far Base Tryhards can make this. They're holding on to their ultimates. They had just used, a nano boost earlier, and INTZ get completely wiped out.
Still, Liko, he's got the Grav coming up shortly. This could very well be another fight to string together for Base Tryhards. Sculp has now made the adjustment. He's gone over to Zarya himself, but this might be a very, very late adjustment being made here by INTZ, where if they're not able to build something quickly and do something with their support ults, INTZ could lose this fight, this point, and go into the third looking very, very down on momentum and morale.
You gotta grab, Primal self-destruct. Base Tryhards have everything in here and they cannot lose this fight. Graviton, barrier, everything is used from Base Tryhards. INTZ have to respond here, and they've already lost Svenko. Nothing can protect them against the sheer damage that Base Tryhards are bringing out. Liko just starts lasering everybody down and trying to accumulate that energy. INTZ starting to fall back. They're losing their tanks, they're losing their supports, and INTZ about to give up point B, and in overtime, Base Tryhards are pulling this off.
Not only that, but Liko was able to accumulate 40% towards his next ultimate already. We're already seeing some of these support ults coming back for Base Tryhards. Neil swaps over to the Reinhardt for this final stage, where certainly that is the better choice. Svenko ahead in ult charge here, so they have that at their disposal, but INTZ utilizing everything that they had in the last fight. They don't have too many more options other than that.
And Liko's going to be in the energy advantage over Sculp, and it's just going to be the Sengoats versus Anagoats Calero. Oh, what a pin from Svenko, and almost had the shatter. Could have 360 that one, but puts himself in an awful position. It's Base Tryhards up by 2, taking out the main tank. INTZ trying to survive after this one, not even really disengaging. They're just trying to die on the cart to buy time, and that least will be coming back with a shatter grab. That could be the ultimates that spell the win or the loss for INTZ.
The only issue here is that Base Tryhards are very close to their own. So it really is just going to be a battle of essentially the same ultimates coming out from both sides. It's going to be who's going to be more effective with either.
Long range yeet, Graviton self-destruct into the back, responding grab from Sculp, but you lost Calero, your main source of healing. Base Tryhards falling apart at the seams, 3 down. That was the shatter from Neil. It gets 3, but not enough damage to make up for it. INTZ spawn advantage, trying to sustain. They need to keep their tanks up. HM has been peeling perfectly for them, and they get pushed back. Base Tryhards in overtime will fail to finish the map.
And that was probably one of the only true errors that you'll see out of Base Tryhards throughout the rest of this series, where we saw Liko dropping a Graviton without sufficient intel. That's something that Base Tryhards are so good with. They are good at giving each other the information and communicating that information to one another so that they can inform some of the best decision making that we see of any team in this region, in this league, certainly of this season. However, that time there was, I think, a very, very large disconnect. We saw some players coming out of that left side, but they had already peeled around that corner by the time Graviton came down. He only caught one person, and it was inside of the room as well. So
they were trying to grab them. Oh, it seemed like they were trying to grab them off the point.
Control it, right? Yeah. But the issue is that without the correct intel, without the correct information, they didn't have any idea whether or not it was the full team or if it was just a few members. If it was the full team, great. If you have the right timing, you catch everyone and you just lock the point down. Awesome. That was obviously the intention. However, they didn't have that information, and they didn't have someone in position to get that information, or someone else in the opposite position to make sure that they could have shut that information down should it have come out or been assumed.
Well, gates are opening, and you didn't want to see it again, but it's happening again. I'm assuming Sculp is going out forward to get that initial scouting, and they have these silly picks to maybe not give up their position of what they're running first. But Base Tryhards, the Sombra Doom, Base Tryhards are so good at this defense. They've run it on Hollywood, they've run it on Numbani. A lot of their defense is based around Liko on the Sombra and Lubak on the Doomfist.
They really like this. They sometimes bring out the Pharah as well, but this has been something that they go to a lot, and this could be an issue though, because INTZ bringing back the Protected McCree. We'll have to see if he can find the answer onto Lubak diving in.
Well, INTZ, they have a slightly more time than Base Tryhards, who finished in overtime and already down Sculp. They're deciding to not even, now they're starting to reset, but unfortunately Svenko didn't get that memo, and that's going to be a stagger.
No Zaryas on the board here, so once we get into that second phase, we'll have to see how they can pull the ultimates out, or if they even get to second phase. We'll have to see. I mean, Sculp and HM really have to come together to be able to deal with Lubak coming off the high ground aggressively like that, just kind of cannonballing right in. EMP getting ever closer though for Liko, and that is a massive threat.
Oh, he just hacks Sculp, but he gets dealt with from HM. He cannot get close to a Brigitte like that. However, it is a 1-to-1 trade. INTZ, they step onto the point, and they start to accumulate that. They push base Tryhards back. We're not deciding to engage us when self-destruct over the back. Is there a bubble available? It still finds two. Sculp and HM are down. Base Tryhards going to engage off of this one. It's Lubak that joins the rest of the team. 1 tick and a half earned from INTZ. Minute and a half. Base Tryhards, they could easily full hold this defense.
Yeah, especially as these ultimates come online. The EMP, the main one that I'm still looking at, Liko went into a position where he could try to pull that out earlier, got met by HM with his shield bash right to the dome. However, this time he's coming off the high ground. He's going to be more reserved because he doesn't have to build it anymore. He can stay in stealth until he pulls it out, and staying clumped up as they have been throughout this attack, they could be met with a full team-wide EMP coming out of this doorway here.
Rally used. They want this high ground for the Deadeye, and he sets it up, but it's hacked. It's EMP'd. Liko shuts it down. Neil brings out the Primal Rage, and the Meteor Strike about to drop from Lugo, trying to find these supports or going towards the back line. Knows that Drusker is low, tries to get him out of mech. Self-destruct over the top. INTZ still haven't found enough pressure on this point to get anything going. They're wasting time. They're wasting ultimates. Hex has the Transcendence. Barrier used from base Tryhards. We're in the number advantage. INTZ uses the Transcendence. They try and group themselves up onto the point. Base Tryhards have a leftover Nano. Honorado loses mech, and this could be starting the start of this defense crumbling. INTZ using every ultimate they have. They're thinking this is their last fight. A second tick is earned. The kills are going through for INTZ, and just barely are they able to get this payload.
Oh, they barely sneak it out there. Base Tryhards coming away. 5 seconds on the clock, though. So INTZ, in spite of that time bank difference that they had at the end of their first round attacks, INTZ now in a similar position where they have that overtime ticking away now. They don't have the Zarya. They don't have too much momentum. It's now going to come down to Liko having this EMP. Can INTZ deal with this? They don't have support ults to back it up. Certainly you can't follow up, or you can't start with Kazma's even if he had it. But Liko coming away, bringing out the EMP, that's going to be a huge problem in this next fight.
Yeah, they just need to survive this one. And they got a self-destruct they can combine with it. Exactly. EMP, self-destruct. Is it fat? It gets one. But everyone steps off of the payload due to that self-destruct, and base Tryhards take Numbani, and they go up 2-0 in our series.
That was close, though. And it was another Numbani map that went that close. Base Tryhards just not able to pull together enough of a solid defense initially to be able to make that as dominant as we're expecting this to be. Nonetheless, though, they get the win, and it is 2-0. They hold on to their streak.
I think INTZ had a fantastic attack, though, having a really good time, actually better time than base Tryhards, but it was the defense that was stronger for base Tryhards. 2-0 in our series. We're going to be throwing it to our halftime desk with Green Havoc, Paul, and Frito.
Now, this is kind of where we expected to, but that Numbani play was absolutely insane. Okay.
We went there, boys.
I deserve the silence. I deserved it. So, I gotta say, though, we've been seeing a lot of weird comps out of INTZ for this whole map, or the whole match, rather. Frito, what are some of these comps that we were seeing, especially back on Ilios?
Well, I'll break down the comps, but more importantly, I think, is what we have to think about is why they're even attempting some of these wacky shenanigans. And that's because you don't go up against one of the best teams in your region playing the meta comp. They play 3-3 to a spectacular level, but they also play everything else great, as we've said before. So I think coming out on to the Hammond triple DPS on Ilios Ruins, that's a good wild card to play. In fact, they had plenty of wild cards up their sleeves, attempting to do what I like to call space age pirate ship. It's a complicated name, I know, but the Symmetra Bastion combo to try to teleport the Bastion to different high grounds. It nearly worked. The rotations for base Tryhards were just too good, outplayed it. But you see they're trying to force some non-GOATS comps or counter-GOATS comps to make sure that they can avoid the GOATS matchup whenever possible. And it looked convincing there for a moment with the McCree, the Super McCree comp, panning out on their attack, able to keep him alive, get him some good sight lines, and make this series look close. But like I said in the pre-show, base Tryhards, man, they'll give you a little bit of an inch. Maybe they'll slip up just in one little way, but then they'll reconvene. They'll figure out what they need to fix, and then look even stronger in sort of the second leg of the map. And that's what they did. They took over Numbani when it looked like INTZ was about to make for the biggest caster curse ever in esports history. I almost just wanted that to happen just so we could talk about that, but of course it's not. Base Tryhards comes in the clutch.
They do have the ability to rally and fix. I mean, clean up their gameplay. We were talking about this possible while we were watching the game that Linko's Zarya play was getting punished and punished and punished, and he wasn't able to find real value. And then it just flipped. Do you mind walking us through some of what that change in the GOATS comps was that allowed for that big change to happen?
Yeah. So to be fair, in Lico's defense, right, the Zarya McCree matchup is not great for the Zarya, right? You do get outranged. Zarya, sure, she's got the right clicks. You got those to try and deal some damage at range. And when you high charge, it does good, but McCree is going to outrange you every time. As soon as your bubble's gone, you're basically dead in the water if you're caught out, right? So that happens a couple times. The Lico tries to go for a bit of a Hail Mary grab at the end of their second attack, right? Tries to grab them all at the door, keep them from the payload. It's a low percentage play, but if it works, it works really well. Doesn't work, right? So Lico looked a little bit off. Looked so much better on the Sombra, right? Always finding value in the backline, hacking the correct targets. Just way more comfortable on that hero, and much more comfortable in the GOATS v GOATS matchup, right? We saw anytime INTZ tried to go at the meta comp that Frito was talking about earlier, tried to just match them in the head-to-head. That was not INTZ's best look, right? They got trounced on it because of players like Lico and like Lobak just being so much better on those roles than their counterparts, right? So Lico struggled a little bit, but I'd still argue he looked much better than Sculpt did when Sculpt was on the Zarya.
Very, very true. And it's definitely a good point to bring up that these Zarya players might not be as used to getting just plinked down by long-range DPS because, you haven't seen them in a while. But we're seeing some crazy comps. So, Frito, you were calling for the Cinderella story. What needs to change? What needs to happen in the second half for us to see some insanity?
The problem with the Cinderella story is that it is a fantasy tale, so it's difficult for me to ground that in reality. I think they still more curveballs. Just throw 4 DPS, Symmetra, Bastion, everything you can to get away from the GOATS matchup. Do that more, and maybe we see some muff shot calls and some confusion from base Tryhards, and we can start this reverse sweep.
So you want him to just go for a Hail Mary every play, huh?
Every single down, yes.
Every down. Every down, just go for the Hail Mary.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, boy.
We do have to go to a break before the second half. For me, what I'm looking forward to is it's a bird, it's a plane, it's high noon. I want more Super McCree. But we will see what the second half holds in just a little bit. We'll be right back after this break.
we dreaming? Are 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 we dreaming?
Welcome back, everybody, to Contenders South America. It's the final week between Base Tryhards and INTZ. INTZ fighting for a spot in playoffs, and Base Tryhards, they're so anchored, they're undefeated, looking to win probably the whole thing, including this series.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts here. They have to get into the playoffs with momentum. They have to feel confident about the way that they get into the playoffs later on. It rather started next year, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But it all starts here, like I mentioned. So what they have to do here is they have to really consider the the struggle that they just went through against INTZ. I mean, INTZ.
Your calculations were almost wrong.
They were almost wrong, but they weren't wrong, however. They were not wrong. So everybody that was making fun of me, don't want me doing your math homework. Well, I don't want to do your math homework because I don't think any of this
I'm already out of
makes
school.
any kind of sense at all anyway. So anyways, you know, I think for this matchup, I think for INTZ especially, what they need to do, and I'm certainly reiterating part of the desk here, and it's because I truly do believe it as well, is that what you really want to do here is you want to really take it to Hanamura if you can. Obviously, they're going to. And the way that you approach that is you do bring out the McCree strat again, or you do bring out a hit scan approach again, run the double stun, make sure that you're staying away from the goats, stay away from that matchup, because that's something that base Tryhards is going to win over and over and over again. And if you can make sure that you're giving this different kind of dynamic, throwing that at base Tryhards where they have to deal with a hit scan threat that's being well insulated by the rest of the team, that is where I think INTZ has a shot. And that is where in my math equation here, it also says somewhere that that's their best shot as well. So.
Well, the probabilities are correct that we're going to Hanamura. You called that one, and that's INTZ's last shot if they want to make playoffs. They could go 2 and 3, and then we can all have all kinds of mess of who's going to end up in 3rd and 4th place. But we do have to throw it to a quick break for a technical difficulty. We'll be right back. And we're right into this action. Base Tryhards on Hanamura, but it's INTZ's attack that have already gotten a tick and a half. And look at these comps. We got Moira Goats, but with a Symmetra.
Yeah, they go right onto the point, going back into their defense of point A. Nimbani now bringing it onto their attack. We've seen this time and time again, but they're just duking it out on the point here. Base Tryhards coming out ahead, though, already.
Well, they gave up only a tick. Okay, the second one didn't go through, but man, I got pretty close.
Here's the thing, too, is INTZ can come right back in with the same exact composition, change nothing, and just dive right back onto the point. They'll soon have Sculpt ready to go with the Graviton that can hold everybody in. Liko is kind of close to an EMP, but if they can get a head start early, that might be all that they need.
Lupahagen. It's the Somber Doom defense from base Tryhards, and I'm so excited to see what they can do. Symmetra Shield dropped for INTZ, and this might protect him for some time onto the point. Svenko already takes care of Honorado, and Lupach responds with one. So INTZ slowly coming forward. It's a Meteor Strike that drops right on top of Hex's head, and he gets a 2K. Base Tryhards, I don't know how they keep turning this around.
Are you kidding me? There's no way that should have happened. There is just no way that should have happened. INTZ had all the control in the world. They got everybody onto point. They had the ultimate. Now all they have is a Coalescence, and that's it. Base Tryhards battle back in. They have a transcendence of their own, so they can sustain through virtually anything with that. And as long as Lubach can just continue having this performance, they can find the kills.
They just like teleported past the defense of base Tryhards. Coalescence from Hex keeps everyone topped up, and base Tryhards just waiting this one out. They might, you know, be giving up a tick, but this is how they respond. They go in with a Transcendence. So much healing for INTZ because they're running this Moira, but Hex gets taken out again. The focus fire from base Tryhards going after the supports is really what's crippling INTZ here.
There was a hiccup last map. Their defense wasn't too great, but they have really turned things back around. And this is that same style that we saw last week that was so scary. The thing that we said last week was that, you know, in spite of all of the roster changes that they've gone through over the last few weeks, more than they've gone through since, I believe, 2016, back in their like Black Dragons days. I mean, this is a team that's been together for a long time. In spite of all those changes, they look as good as they ever have, and they're continuing that finally here.
Meteor Strike right out of there, just the exit button, finds himself on the roof. INTZ now have an opening to engage, but they're just going to use the teleporter to go forward. Focusing now onto the tanks, they have the Symmetra ultimate, and actually, I think he got hacked out from the EMP self-destruct. Base Tryhards just completely just shut INTZ down there.
Now you have to swap things out. Now you have to get HM over to a Brig. Now you have to potentially start thinking about Hex being on a Zenyatta or something like that. The Moira, I don't think, is going to work into this Ana. You have to start making adjustments, or you have to play off of this Coalescence into a Graviton. Still so difficult, though, because you know that you just have threats at every single angle. You know, especially Calero could shut down your whole attack.
Oh, a Nano from base Tryhards. They go forward. Meteor Strike just exit key right out of there, going actually into the back line to deal some of the supports. HM against the wall. Not the greatest positioning from INTZ, going into these tiny corridors against a Doomfist. Couple seconds left. Last chance for INTZ to respond, and it's a Graviton thrown from Sculpt, I believe, and Drusker self-destruct does get one, but base Tryhards sustaining with the Transcendence. So over time, INTZ don't look like they have enough momentum to flip this point. Base Tryhards, they'll pull off a miracle. 2 ticks earned for INTZ, so there's a winning condition there. Base Tryhards, they come back with a Hammond.
Oh, EMP is so close for Liko. If he could get off an EMP, this is going to be one of those classic base Tryhards first point holds. I think they can pull it off.
They just might. INTZ are stepping off the point. They walk into an EMP from Liko, and overtime dwindles away, and INTZ, they just had a fleeting good attack on Numbani, and now they struggle to get point A on Hanamura.
Oh no, base Tryhards are back, and just as good as they've ever been. INTZ Esports struggling to get that first point. They just barely get the second tick, and that's another point there where base Tryhards maintain the composure again. I mean, INTZ were in the position where they could have started taking control and start getting those kills, move towards the second point, but base Tryhards just like it's so good at maintaining the lives of everybody in those situations where they're down and out. There's really no hope. They really shouldn't be in the fight anymore, but they just somehow manage to always be able to claw their way back in. And now a really, really good opportunity here for them to just be able to close this map out. Again, we talked about momentum, morale going into the playoffs, feeling confident. This is a good way to get that going.
And this is kind of deja vu from last week where INTZ actually lost Hanamura because they were just trying all kinds of stuff. This is where they tried the triple DPS, Sombra, Genji, Tracer. They even had HM on Mei on Hanamura, which is maybe less common. It's more of a point B thing. But INTZ, the Symmetra, I think it had a good idea in the first attack. That's how they got their first tick. But not great at sustaining on the point against just the sheer power of a team like base Tryhards.
And now we'll have to see what kind of attack they want to go for. I'm imagining it's just going to be, you know, like a Moira Goats or a Zen Goats and just waltz right into the point. That's typically been what base Tryhards goes for in these situations. And Calero's going to go ahead and scout forward, but look at this, HM on the Mei. This worked for them last week. HM just putting everybody in his backpack, whether it be on the Pharah or the Mei.
See, I think INTZ had a great defense on Route 66 with the Mei, not so hot on Hanamura, but they're bringing Sculpt back on the Bastion. It was a thing on Numbani, and that's all I could say about that. And base Tryhards, they have the dive, and they'll have the reflect from Liko to kind of deal with that damage, and Lubach for the flank. We'll see how this one goes. Wall already used from INTZ, though, to protect Sculpt mainly. Base Tryhards, they get onto the point, and they got a free tick.
Oh, they've already gained control as well. Sculpt does manage to demech Honorato, but that's about all he's going to wind up getting.
That was so cool. They just bubbled Sculpt, and just all this damage he was putting out meant absolutely nothing. Base Tryhards have figured out how to counter the Bastion, and they just need a few more percentage points, and there goes the chances of INTZ in playoffs. Base Tryhards take the 3-0 and still remain undefeated in the season.
Still got one more map, though. INTZ. You have to imagine, right, that they're going to be bringing this to Route 66. I mean, you have to imagine, because that has been what has been looked the best from them. But certainly, if you look back last week, they pulled off that maze trap very well. However, as we've already seen here on Hanamura, as we've already seen on Numbani as well, when you throw off these kind of weird sort of strats into a team like Base Tryhards, they're always going to be able to adapt. We've seen it from them every single time that a curveball is thrown. It's not going to come from the compositions, as I mentioned, coming out of that first map. It is not going to come out of the compositions. If you're going to throw a curveball, do it off the way that you position, do it off the way that you approach fights, the way that you engage, the way that you string ultimates. Everything else has to change. Do not change the compositions, because that has not worked for you as of yet. I would say protect the McCree or go for a May, do something like that. But as you can see, Base Tryhards, you just cannot meet them with anything but what you are best at, because they are insane.
Right? Look at Lubach just manhandling everybody on this point. This is like the best area that a Doomfist can thrive on. Walls to smash everybody against. And look at this bubble on top of Sculpt. This just eliminates the whole value of Bastion. And there's really nothing the Honor from Cosma could have done in any of these situations. Would have been great to maybe see an ultimate from Sculpt, or ultimates to be built up in general from INTZ, but it was just a roll through from Base Tryhards, who were expecting this to come out. They saw the Bastion on Numbani, and they probably knew how to deal with it if it were to come out again. And I think, the May strat that you brought on Route 66, if we go there, it is the choice of INTZ. If we go there, I think Base Tryhards could be expecting it, and they could bring out Liko on the far up to counter it.
Yeah, and there is certainly a lot of different options here. I think you definitely stay away from Dorado, because then you're just going back into the issue of playing snipers, playing Zen Goats. Those are your two best options. There is some opportunity to play some Protect the McCree, but at any point we could see, when we do see the Protect the McCree, we could easily see them congested into chokes. We could see them taken out by a Widow's type strategy, or we could see Zen Goats come out. So you have to go to Route 66 here. That's exactly what we're getting now as we look at the map pool. It's been Ilios, it's been Numbani, it's been Hanamura, all in favor of Base. Numbani was pretty close. We're going to Route 66. This is the other map on the board that could look good here, but it all comes down to the way that we see this first point defense looking for INTZ. Are they defending first? Are they attacking first? We'll have to see. But if we do see them defend, are they going to go for the maze strat? And if so, how is the reaction going to look out of Base Tryhards?
Because Base Tryhards have been looking great on their Somber Doom, so it's wondering, or they could bring out the double sniper as we saw in Ilios Ruins. I mean, there's so many cards in Base Tryhards' hand, and we've only seen a few from INTZ that have actually worked out. And I think their best approach has been on Numbani. Run the Zen Goats, run what you're good at, bring Skull back on the McCree if your head is still in the game. You're down 0-3, you're out of playoffs. I think this could be a fun map where INTZ just try and play what they love to play. Bring HM on LaFera. That was one of his favorite heroes and what he was best at. Sculpt had a fun time on McCree. You never know what you're going to see in a fourth map, and we're heading right into Route 66 for our final map between Base Tryhards. Can Base Tryhards remain undefeated before playoffs? That's the question.
Well, here's the thing. INTZ, they're definitely in a spot where they want to be able to win quickly here.
Oh, the triple DPS from Base Tryhards. I think they've left the doors from their defense, but looks like a technical difficulty. We will be right back after this quick break. Welcome back, right into the action we go again, and INTZ on their attack, and I said something silly, and look how silly this is. The quad DPS, Mercy Zen. Base Tryhards also playing some silly games. Quad DPS with the Hammond Mercy.
So battling each other out, quick play style here is what we're getting. And it's not only that, but it's also Drusker on the Widow. So they're bringing out 0 tanks. So not even like the single tank, single DPS strategy that you sometimes wind up seeing, like we're getting out of base Tryhards. It's instead going to be the double DPS. Okay, here's a swap, but it's Svenko? Svenko over to the Winston? This is a question mark as well?
Yeah, he played that on Numbani. He played some Winston on Numbani. This has been a different look from INTZ, and they also had Cosmo go to the Lucio, so they're really preparing for somewhat of a dive attack with HM, Sculpt, and the rest. Now 2 tanks coming out. Okay, we got a real comp going on, but this has been time wasted.
Not only that, but we'll see them approach that high ground into Lubak as well. They are looking to find the kill. He's down low, but the support is there from Wings.
Wow, and Lubak somehow survives, has the infra sight. Liko has been dealing also a pretty good counter to someone like Genji, someone like HM, and someone like everybody. He's countering everybody, going after Sculpt on the Tracers. So base Tryhards having tons of fun here, and I don't think INTZ staying in spawn for a few more minutes is going to be fun.
2 minutes already wound off the clock as it is. Barrage at the ready for Liko. Not a lot of options, too, to deal with it. I mean, Drusker can throw out a defense matrix. Svenko can throw out the barrier as well. But outside of that, all that mayhem is going to be an absolute massacre here. Base Tryhards really going to be playing off of this one, taking the angles, creating threatening positions with Calero and Lubak.
Oh, just barrages as soon as Svenko dives in. 1-to-1 trade. Oh, with the reflag. Hot damn, INTZ. They finally got a few kills and can push this payload forward, and the finish is there. HM on this Genji, and the double pulse bomb. What is happening? INTZ starting to get the ultimates that they need to get to point A.
They're just doing it with such a different composition here too, because they're playing, like I said before, it's not going to happen with the compositions being strange and way out of left field. It's going to happen by just playing what you're good at and doing it very, very well, and just creating weird approaches. That's exactly what INTZ has given us. They're playing GT dive. This is the most vanilla dive that you're ever going to see. They swap up the Widow. This is still a pretty, standard composition that they're playing. It's just their approach has changed dramatically in terms of how they utilize this composition.
And HM about to get Blade and Transcendence out of Hex, and that could have sustained him. They push forward. It's not really a huge valuable Transcendence. HM goes forward now with the Blade, trying to take care of the supports of base Tryhard. Liko on this McCree. HM will have to play a lot more carefully to be worried of the stun that could come out of our little cowboy. But INTZ, we keep pushing this payload, and base Tryhards actually haven't contested it quite yet.
They've really struggled to just be able to even get out into the field on top of everything. I mean, Calero has been weirdly very out of character. He's been out of position a couple of times, just out in the open, and he's been caught for it. Base Tryhards coming back into this fight, though. We'll have to see what they can do with this.
Barrier drop from INTZ, and this could put them forward with the Primal Rage as well, and HM has just been cleaning up. Now Liko has to bring out the Genji, and that's another one of his signature heroes. Not feeling the McCree. Rally started from base Tryhards, just trying to sustain them one last time. Just a few more meters for INTZ to get to point B, and they start to already lose their DPS. They've lost Drusker's mech, and Sculpt can't really maintain payload pressure as the Widowmaker, so base Tryhards have successfully pushed INTZ back here.
Hex goes down, and that should signal the end there, but it's 2 minutes left. A lot of time to work with to maintain this and push it into the final phase of the map. That's probably the scariest section of this map, because that's when you do wind up going into the possibility of meeting the GOATS composition, the Zen GOATS composition specifically of base Tryhards, and that's one you want to stray away from if you can. However, in the meantime, INTZ has already swapped up to that themselves. They're going to go straight to the point and try to battle out at the ground while getting momentum for that final stage.
And Hex needs to keep this Transcendence for Lico's Blade that's about to come online. INTZ preparing their attack, a few more meters to go. Base Tryhards, they touch the payload. Self-destruction cleared away. Lico comes out with the Blade, 1 kill for Base Tryhards. The Transcendence from Hex comes out to block Lico's damage, but it's just chaos on this payload. Kazma has to drop the barrier, and Base Tryhards are split up. Some in the backline, some on the high ground, and you got Lubak starting to rally for himself to sustain on the cart. INTZ, they start to fall apart at the seams once the support ultimates are out of the picture, and they'll have to reset again in the last minute of the game.
Drusker is finding some kills, but essentially all this is doing is just more time off the clock. I mean, Base Tryhards okay with what's going on here. They have the respawn advantage. They know they have the respawn advantage, and as long as they can maintain this, it's just more ability for them to come back, build more ultimates, and stay away from INTZ. But INTZ, it looks like they might be able to re-engage here.
HM is just this one-man army, and Lico already finding the not-so-fun end of that flail. INTZ have a self-destruct. They just used the rally. Self-destruct now over the top. Not much, but it just cleared a ton of space. And somehow Drusker smashes the mech right on top of Wings. And Base Tryhards had a really great defense, shaving off all that time. Down to 2 minutes, INTZ get point B.
Not only that, but you've perhaps even the odds a little bit. INTZ have a Graviton coming up, but Base Tryhards have the Transcendence now. They have the ability to sustain through that at least. It really is just going to come down to INTZ having both of their support ults here, but also having the Shatter. They have a little bit more options going into this next fight, and if they're aggressive, they can take that advantage and start finding some early picks and win fights.
INTZ getting close to that Shatter. They have it now. Graviton from Sculp. Taking out HM though. There's not going to be a stun for Base Tryhards, and Neil gets pinned. INTZ Shatter earlier, and they have a leftover grab. Not a lot of time for INTZ to work with, and they still have to get a good pressure onto the cart. Have to heal up Svenko. Now they start to go forward. They need to take advantage of this now that Neil is gone. Transcendence in for INTZ. Sculp holding on to the Graviton. Svenko is so deep right now, and he's going to get punished for it. The barrier from Kazma couldn't save him. Base Tryhards, now it's their time to respond now that their main tank is gone, or in. Self-destruct from Honorado creates space, pushes INTZ all the way back into spawn. In the last 43 seconds, INTZ have to think of something.
So important that Base Tryhards win that fight, because now they're maintaining energy levels for Lico. They have the grab as well. Scope used his, didn't get much effect in the last fight. And look at this. They have the Transcendence. They have the Shatter. All the same equipment that INTZ came into the fight prior with. Base Tryhards now has themselves defensively. They could quickly get a gear shift, just hold the W key, get aggressive, and look for this next team fight win.
It says INTZ's last chance to just get one map on the board. Can they make Base Tryhards undefeated? Lico has the Graviton, throws it out. INTZ, I think they ate it. There is no effect of this Graviton from the defense, but Neil is still going ham as the Reinhardt. INTZ have no members alive to really... Oh, actually, one Diva was there to touch the card, but overtime dwindles away. A rally from HM won't be enough to give his team the win, and INTZ will end with a 4-0 defeat to Base Tryhards.
Well, we've still got one side to go, Lemon. A little ahead of ourselves here. It felt like it.
3 years.
It felt like 3 years, but we do have Base Tryhards attack here, and now we have to wonder that first point, right? That quad DPS that we saw on both sides, is that going to come out again? INTZ, we know defensively really like playing that Mei strat. So we're getting back into that, right? We're getting back into that whole that whole setup, that dynamic where, okay, if they do bring out the Mei, what is Base Tryhards going to do to answer that? Are they going to bring out a lot of DPS, a lot of sustained DPS to break down the wall and be able to shut that down? Are they going to bring something more spike oriented so that they can get that spike damage off, kill INTZ as soon as that opportunity opens itself up? Or are they just going to go for a very similar approach to what we saw last week, which is just bring the Bastion or something like that? I mean, there's a lot of different approaches to dealing with this. It's just, which one are they going to bring out, and will it be successful?
I don't know, man. I mean, at least it was a better attack than they did on Hanamura, and slightly less good than Numbani. We're in the middle, and I already thought it was over. Man, I'm all kinds of messed up. I thought like the quad DPS at the beginning felt a little strange to me.
Yeah.
INTZ, got on their horse, but I think that was a pretty cool play that INTZ ate the grab from Base Tryhards. But Base Tryhards, they let it get that far. Now it's their answer if they can at least finish the map or get to point C and take the 4-0 like I had called it. But we'll see if I now just cast or curse this one out the doors. Base Tryhards, they bring now the 2-2-2, the dive with Lubak on the Widow and Colero on the Sombra.
All right, well, there's the wall down. It's now contested. Base Tryhard sees this. Now, how do they answer? They've got double projectile, or rather double explosives, whatever you want to call it. This was the old answer to the standard goats, although it never really seemed to work out. So that wall's continuously coming down. Look at how clean it is, too, the positioning on that one.
This Mace track coming out, and it does burn. Sometimes Fango gets pooped out. Oh, and Neil collapses on him. But now Neil is inside the cave of death, and won't be able to get out of that one. It could resurrect it if they somehow put Wings in a position, but not going to happen. And still hold this defense, it seems.
Here's the issue, though. The way that they set that up was exactly... Remember when the first time we saw this, I said, just put a Pharah behind them. And to have some damage up front, just put a Pharah behind them and just start tossing rockets in. Well, that's what they did. Liko went behind them, started tossing the rockets. They were easily able to break that down. Now, INTZ is in a position where they do not have the ability to have that same setup until we get to point 2, or if they can get to the gas station quickly. I don't think that they have the allowance to do that, though.
INTZ trying to just make it out of this cave, but Base Tryhards pushing them right back in. Tire now from Lubak and a barrage over the top. Dresker loses the mech, but it's the 3K from Liko that really shines on this kill feed. And Base Tryhards have taken out everybody. It's just the cleanup duty. Base Tryhards get point A.
Coalescence coming out. I imagine because they want to bring a Zenyatta here or something, that they're just making this swap. And I believe that to be the case. Ooh, Liko. Hello. Good morning to Liko, HM says, but nonetheless, there's the res, so it's not going to really amount to anything other than a lost cooldown and another opportunity for HM to go up to the skies and look for another. But remember, they don't have the Mei here, so they're getting away from this strat entirely. That's going to allow Base Tryhards to just swap off of this composition, and wow, are you kidding me?
Colero, hot damn. Resurrect is back, HM's back, and back for some revenge. Sculp holding on to the Graviton, and it's been Base Tryhards trying to hold on to that payload pressure, and they're getting pushed back. Honorado's about to lose mech, and he does. The Primal Rage from Neil wasn't enough to save him.
Oh, Dresker is really struggling on the point right now. He is about to lose his mech. Can reset it, but I don't think he chooses to. In fact, he dies almost immediately after losing it. And it's Base Tryhards looking to have an impressive attack here, and it looks like that should be the case. I mean, not only are they winning this fight, but they're taking some staggers as well, which is very, very important because that allows them to set up onto this high ground. It allows them to get into position with their dive, put Lubak into a position where he has a good angle of threat to work with, and give where INTZ can't do much with that. Inversight available for HM, though, gives them the opportunity to perhaps work around it.
Lubak in position, and you have Sculp still holding on to the Grav. It's the defense from INTZ that could stand out here, and the Grav is thrown. Looking through the eyes of Lubak, who's not finding any shots. Base Tryhards looking to respond here. Wings going for the resurrect. Neil is back, and the blade from Liko going after Hex. Does find the shot and just going after the supports. Liko so deadly with this ultimate, and Base Tryhards have cleaned up everybody. INTZ is down. The yellow box of victory is right around the corner.
And they have so much time to get there to 4.5 minutes roughly as Base makes the swaps into this final stage of the map where they really want to just go full ham, full on aggressive with the Lucio and drive straight into the point, straight in with the payload as well. And they will be able to find the dive threat onto HM as well. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay alive here.
We got a self-destruct from Honorado. Could just build enough space to push INTZ back, but it's INTZ that collapsed on them first. Primal Rage pushing the Transcendence, or it seemed like Colero all the way back into the bar. And INTZ are so far deep into the backline of Base Tryhards, they have to remember about the cart. Svenko keeping the supports occupied. Now can the rest of his team get the kills they need to respond on this defense? But it's Neil's Primal that's even bigger. HM into the back, not having as much of an impact, at least finding one. But Base Tryhards are all green in your kill feed, meters away from making this a 4-0.
And Wings should get back rather quickly. The only issue here is not having your Brig is perhaps going to be a little bit of an issue, but it won't pose to be very much of one. Now, Base Tryhards, remember, this is all or nothing. Big map streak right now on the table, 19 so far. Can you make it 20?
The last chance for INTZ is here. Spanko drops the shatter, I believe, or self-destruct now also. They're just trying to stay alive with everything that they can. Lubak about to get the rally online. Liko closer and closer to the Graviton. That could be what they need to spell this out. Drops the Graviton. Honorado hasn't let go of the self-destruct yet. Now let's go up into the sky. INTZ sustaining as much as they can onto the cart, into the backline. You see the supports are still alive. Base Tryhards have taken out Drusker. Barrier drop from Base Tryhards. Neil has to use the Primal, and Liko is holding onto this cart, and there's just all kinds of chaos on this cart. INTZ just have one person left on this cart. Spanko is down. Is there anyone left to stall this cart? INTZ trickling and trickling in desperation. The Hammond from HM comes up.
Oh, the Coalescence out as well from Hex. Trust trying to put some damage onto Calero, but it might not be enough.
Coalescence and not enough to stall the cart, though. You can't actually power that cart back. But the 4-0 victory, as my crystal ball and early scuffed prediction called it. Base Tryhards will remain undefeated in playoffs, and INTZ dropped the 4-0 to this team.
Well, that's a perfect season for Base Tryhards. It's something that they failed to do last season. They were so close.
Just
they
the
were so
one map,
close last
come on.
season, but they finally managed to do it this season, becoming the second team in Contender history, as far as I'm aware at least, to do it. I think it's been done now 3 times. City Drop Bears have done it twice, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they also did it this season as well. So that's a huge feat, though. Base Tryhards continuing that domination despite all of the changes that have been thrown their way. Obviously, a huge congratulations to the players that have moved up into, bigger things and everything like that. But still, continuing that tradition.
Well, this is still Base Tryhards remaining undefeated as they go into playoffs. INTZ unfortunately not going to join them there, but there's more Overwatch action to come. We're going to send it over to our Broadcast.gg post desk with Frito, Paul, and Green Havoc.
Well, it's not the most surprising end to this match. Base Tryhards have been phenomenal on all season, and while they didn't take their foot off the gas pedal here, they wanted their perfect season, and they have achieved it. So congratulations to that. We do sadly say goodbye to INTZ for this season. They will not be joining us in the postseason, but they made this a much funner match than I think a lot of people expected. And so, Frito, I gotta ask though, we had hyped up their May strat. They had used it to a lot of success earlier in the season, especially last week. What happened this time though? It did not have the same payoff.
Well, Base Tryhards are a team, as we've hyped them up to be, that's looking to compete on the international level, right? And a team of that caliber is going to see a problem that you pose to them in Overwatch and know how to figure out the solutions, right? They come at it with the double spam, Junkrat just putting mines or the grenades into the hole essentially, and just flushing it out, setting up for the barrages so that they can't get to those igloo locations, and really making that strat look as gimmicky as it should be, frankly. And that's what you really expect from a high-level team like this, to be able to take strats that might trip up lesser quality teams and just dance around them. As well, I think anytime they pull out the Bastion, INTZ tried, we saw how good mobility is to just get around that Bastion. Saw it on Nubani point A, and as well attacking into it on her Hanamura point A, in order to just circumnavigate all of its sight lines and dance around it, so that they just can't basically be in the line of sight of the Bastion at any point. So their ability to adapt to these different strategies is what we wanted to see, and it came up. So I'm proud of Base Tryhards. Well done.
Yeah, and you know what, Plausible, you brought this up at the beginning of the cast that the Base Tryhards had only allowed 16 points. They had played 16 maps. They were even with that. Well, the silver lining for INTZ is they ruined that today. They have Base Tryhards has now allowed more points on maps than their map wins. So, little silver lining. But walk me through Base Tryhards going into the playoffs. They looked a little shaky. What do they need to tighten up going into that final stretch?
Well, Base Tryhards, let's all be real here. They know they're the best team in the region, right? And it shows not necessarily in the best ways sometimes. We saw that on Numbani, right? Players will go forward thinking they can frag out, get picks, not play with the team. they'll get caught out. That happened to Calero, Liko, even Lubak once or twice. So it's base tryhards. They need when we go to playoffs, because that's when everyone's watching, right? And this is a team, like we said at the halftime desk, base tryhards want to get noticed by Overwatch League. They want to prove themselves that they deserve to go on out of this region and be picked up for the professional level. If you want to do that, when it comes to postseason, you got to play clean. You can't give away fights just to frag out, right? You have to go into every single push with the perfect strategy. If they were able to do an undefeated map record, I want them to get as close to losing no fights in the postseason as physically possible, right? It's gonna happen. Alt advantages happen. It's the GOATS meta, right? But they can't go forward and just play overconfident like they do, because that's the only time that they seemingly lose fights. So when it comes to postseason, they just need to lock it down and say, okay, we had our fun. This is where we dominate.
It's one thing to lose to the big combos, but you can't beat yourselves. And that's what I'm hearing, is that base tryhards just needs to make sure that they're playing in their own rhythm and that they play just a little cleaner to guarantee those playoff spots. But obviously, like we've seen this whole season, they have just been phenomenal. So we do have another game coming up in just a little bit. Now, this one doesn't have playoff implications in line as far as one team losing out of playoff spots. Both of these teams will be joining us in the playoffs. However, there is seeding to be found out. So it's going to be exciting. Stick around. We'll have our next game in just a bit.